Hi, welcome to the video on how to get better at single leg work. So this is lunges, split squats, or what we call lower body unilateral work. So why do we do it first and foremost? Lots of people don't like them because they're difficult. The reason why we must do single-sided work, that's both upper and lower body, is to address any imbalances and to make sure that we're strong equally on both sides, not just on one. So we see a lot of compensation, and that can lead to pain, back pain, hip pain, etc. But also a lack of strength in one side can mean lack of progression and performance in and out of the gym. So especially if you're doing things like sport or running, etc., and can lead to sort of overuse injuries as well as slightly bigger and longer term injuries as well. So it's all about building a stronger body and a more well-rounded body rather than just focusing on movements that we kind of enjoy. So yes, single-sided work is harder and lots of people don't like them, but obviously there's many different reasons, as we've just stated, as to why we do them. So why do people find it quite hard, first and foremost? Well, obviously you're loading just a single side, and that in itself makes things more challenging. It hits the core a little bit harder as well, so you're having to stabilize yourself more. You're using more stabilization in and around the joints, so more stabilizing muscles. So if your one side on, let's say in your hip, is weaker in those stabilization muscles, you're going to find that a little bit more difficult to control. So how do we sort of assess things first and foremost? Well, what we do is we look at what you're like from the floor. So we always coach at DMF from the floor up, and we look to see kind of where your strength lies from this position to this position. Okay, so if you've got that strength and stability on both sides, you're going to be good to do any form of lower body unilateral movement, such as a lunge, etc., or single leg. We'll call it single leg from now on. So when we assess, we're looking to see how that looks. What we're looking to see is how does the person transition from here to this position in our assessment. Now, we're looking at things like if they tip right forwards and they really struggle to get up in that position, or we're looking at what happens with the knee. So if it really drops in as they push up, etc., then there's obviously an issue with your strength. So we look to build from that point. So we would say that's the start point, and we would assess and go from that point there. So what we're trying to do is build strength in the bottom range. So as of any lift or movement, the hardest range is the bottom part. So from here to here, okay? That's the weakest part of everybody's lift. On a bench press, it's from here to here, and then from here to here. This bit here is easier. We're stronger in that range. So how do we build and get better at those movements? Well, it's not just quite as simple as just working the quad. It could be your glute activation as well. Glutes are your butt cheeks. If you're weak in there, you're going to find it quite hard to push from the floor through your heel. So you'll only be using your quadriceps there generally. So we want to try to get those glutes firing a little bit better. So we do things like glute bridges on the floor to get these glutes firing and stronger, and lots of single leg stuff. And when we assess, we look at each leg and each glute in this position, seeing where they get into. So if you've got somebody from here and they can't get further than here, it means they've got a serious weakness here. Generally, these are taken over, and we have to do our best to try and improve them. So that's another part of the assessment, hence why you'll see a lot of our members doing single leg glute bridges, lots of activation work, and then we build from there. The other sort of variations that we use, actually I'm jumping ahead there. So what we want to do is to build strength in that range, we need to start from this position, and we'll use some form of assistance to get from here to this point here and then all the way up. So you can use something like a broom handle. We can use the rings here and pull yourself up. But ultimately, we want to try to build and use as little of that as you possibly can. We've got many members who've been with us for a while who've done that, built that single leg strength, and then they kind of progress from there. From the floor, the best way to kind of build is to actively push off the back toes and through the front heel. you want a nice little right angle here, right angle on the back, and actively push and drive, and then they will get more activation through the glute and that assistance. Over time, they will build that strength in that bottom range. We can look to reduce the range by using some of these yoga blocks. It's always a good way of building strength. Obviously, it's not in the bottom range, but obviously you can then get from here to here a bit easier. And then obviously, so we're actually getting stronger in that range, but also looking how to build from the bottom range as well. So it's not just as black and white as going just one exercise. We're looking to build strength in all the ranges, and we'll put that all together in your single leg work. And then we like to build lots of different varieties of single legs. So you have lots of different loading patterns. So we could have something like a suitcase lunge like this, or split squat down by the side, which is a bit more challenging one side on the core. On the rack position, we could have a bar on our backs. We could have a dumbbell in front of you, 2 dumbbells down by the side. There's so many different ways of loading, but ultimately, the loading pattern, the way we load you isn't necessarily that important to build strength in those ranges. It's building strength in those ranges whatever way that we possibly can. That is how we get better at lunges. The other way, finally, just to wrap that up, the last thing we want to do is to make sure that you create mechanical tension in the end ranges. So we want to slow down, okay, and then explode up. So nice and steady tempos. You'll see a lot of tempo work in our training. So coming down, nice and steady, and then up quick, building those fast twitch muscle fibers, big squeeze at the top. That's a surefire way of building strength in that range, starting off body weight and building and building and building rep by rep. And the most important thing is that you always start on the weakest side. Every single time you do the lunge, it must be on your weaker side, and you never ever do more weight or more reps than the weaker side. You always do the weaker side, and whatever you get on those lunges on that weaker side is what you do on the right hand side with the same reps, same weight, and you build rep by rep, week by week, and over time you should find the imbalance basically rights itself. If it doesn't, then there's something else. We need to look into it a bit deeper, but ultimately, very, very straightforward to strengthen imbalances out, and that is how we do it with lunges.